Another ugly fuck, Ron DeSantis, is caught between magat and Donald Trump, and it's kind of like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. Now, you know the presidential primary campaigns had begun in earnest when political reporters start trudging around Iowa and hanging out in diners to find out what the real Americans are thinking about. This week, we got our first dose of this quadrennial ritual when both Donald Trump and his closest rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, showed up to give speeches and mingle with the hoi polloi. According to the Washington Post, Trump remains his free-willing self while DeSantis is tightly scripted, which is not exactly news. But there are some subtle changes. For instance, Trump is making a point of showing up unannounced at some local businesses to pretend to be a regular guy in order to contrast himself with DeSantis, who is known to be cold and off-putting. Now, DeSantis, meanwhile, is sticking to his prepared speeches in order to appeal to Republicans who are sick of Trump's incendiary rhetoric, and they want to hear a normal political speech. Well, anything that DeSantis says isn't normal anyway. But in other words, it's all about style, because when it comes to policy, they are clones of each other, fiercely pandering to the base, each of them trying to out-maggot the other. Their need to get to the right of each other has them both vying for the most extreme elements of the party. Now, Trump went after DeSantis in his speech for the first time in detail, slamming the Florida governor for being a loser, which is kind of funny because Trump is a loser himself, who couldn't have won without him. And technically, Trump, you didn't win, and DeSantis didn't really win either. You guys were installed. Now, Trump said DeSantis was taking credit for Florida doing well, when it was really Senator Rick Scott, a former Republican governor, and even former Democratic Governor Charlie Crist, who made Florida great again. No, neither one of them did. Now, Trump also called DeSantis a Paul Ryan acolyte, and compared him to Mitt Romney, which is the lowest of blows among the maggot faithful. And he hit him hard for his past votes to cut Social Security and Medicare. Trump is trying to portray DeSantis as an opportunist who doesn't really believe what he's saying and therefore shouldn't be trusted, which is kind of funny because we can't trust Trump. And it's actually a pretty honest critique. Now, for his part, DeSantis talked about woke stuff, but couldn't really give a definition on it, and then said a little bit more about wokeness and wokery, and bragged again that Florida is where woke goes to die. He didn't go after Trump directly, but merely hinted around it by saying that his administration doesn't leak, and suggesting that he's not a drama king. Or you mean drama queen. According to the reports, audiences were satisfied by both candidates, and they want to hear more, and I'm not really satisfied by either one of them. At this point, it seems that the only reason anyone would choose DeSantis over Trump is because they think he's more electable, and he's really not. He's hewing as close to Trump on policy as he can get. In fact, this week he finally decided to take a position on foreign policy, and rather than stick with his former, more traditional conservative stance, he went all maggot, proving that his makeover from the hard right Tea Party conservative was that when he was in Congress to the Trump-style culture warrior that he is today, which he's really not that either. Now, responding to a questionnaire sent out by the de facto leader of the Republican Party, the racist piece of shit Tucker Carlson, DeSantis came out against supporting the war in Ukraine, declaring that is not in the American vital interest, and that there must be peace apparently at the price of Ukraine becoming a Russian vassal state. Of course, Ukraine is an American interest because Russia wrongfully invaded that, and basically, the Republicans don't understand that shit because they can care less. Now, while the U.S. has many vital national interests, securing the borders, addressing the crisis of readiness within our military, technically the borders are already secured, so basically, now checking the economic, cultural, and military power of the Chinese Communist Party and becoming further entangled in the territory dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them. Without question, peace should be the objective. And yes, Ukraine was very peaceful until Russia invaded. Now, Ukraine is protecting their own homeland, and Russia wrongfully invaded that, like I had said before. Now DeSantis blathered on about the Green New Deal and Biden allegedly depleting the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which isn't true, and said that regime change is off the table because whoever replaced Putin would be much worse. And it's all very Trumpian and in stark contrast to his comments back in 2015 when Putin invaded Crimea. On May 21st, 2015, I think if we had a policy which was firm and we armed Ukraine with defensive and offensive weapons so that they could defend themselves, I think Putin would make different calculations. So I think Obama's policy of weakness is actually making a larger conflict more likely. That was Trump. So, Now, if a Democrat is doing it, it must be wrong no matter what it is. Just as revealing, DeSantis suggested that the money the U.S. is spending on arming Ukraine is needed to arm our own border with Mexico, which is rapidly becoming a major policy plank on the maggot right. We cannot prioritize intervention in an escalating foreign war with the defense of our own homeland, especially as tens of thousands of Americans are dying every year from narcotics smuggled across our open border, which the border isn't open, and our weapons arsenals critical for our own security are rapidly being depleted, and we can't send weapons to Ukraine because we need to defend our homeland at the border. We don't technically need to defend the homeland at the border. That truly does sound anonymous. I haven't heard Trump say that explicitly, but he reportedly pushed the idea of bombing Mexico numerous times during his term, so I'm sure he's on board with this idea. And he also believes that Ukraine is not of vital interest to America, and he prattled on about how Europe should be paying more, as he always does when he doesn't know what he's talking about. The Satanist's position has opened up yet another schism in the GOP, and it's particularly galling to the establishment types who really want the Satanists to take out Trump for them. The majority of Republicans in Congress support NATO and Ukraine and are concerned about sending a message to the Russian president that if he just keeps going for a couple more years, he'll have an ally in the White House who will cut off Ukraine and basically give him the country. I'm sure that there was plenty of cheering in the Kremlin to hear that the two front runners for the GOP nomination are on the same page in that regard. Now, Trump's response to the Satanists in Ukraine was fucking priceless. He's, basically, Trump says he's following what I'm saying. It's a flip-flop. He was totally different. Whatever I want, he wants. Well, technically, nobody wants what you want anyway. But basically, Trump is not wrong on this situation. The Satanist has clearly decided that his road to the nomination runs right through Donald Trump's magat movement, and he's not going to let even the slightest bit of daylight show between him and their Satanist idol. The question is, how many of them will choose him when they can have the real thing? Now, if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. Go ahead, you can leave a comment, let me know what you think. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a little as a few bucks a video or a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.